Lionel Laloum. Is that correct? Yeah. So,
You are ready.
welcome. Dr. Laloum holds a
Thank you.
PhD in digital arts and computer engineering and completed a research creative dissertation at Paris 8 focused on generative AI and multimodal textuality. And he also holds advanced degree in intelligence system, image, and video game engineering. And his work spans both technical and artistic domains, including symbolic data analysis in the medical administrative sector, AI methods for trading cards games, and teaching in computer science schools. And alongside his research, he has also contributed to change management and training initiatives in medical settings. So thank you for joining us, and let's welcome Lionel Laloum. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I'm sharing my screen. Yes, that's here. And okay, it displays well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Yvette. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be part of this symposium to share with you around this fascinating subject that is teaching AI. In addition to what have been said, I regularly participate in workshops on training in hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming, which is an applied psychology and communication method. To introduce my subject, I will use the term of Elke Reinhuber, who introduces the term synthography as a neologism to designate, to put it simply, the intervention of AI in the creation of images. The ability to express one's wishes through natural language has greatly contributed to the popularity of its systems, allowing for simplified use that requires little or no technical skills. This transition from know-how to the machine reminds us of Benjamin Walter's reflection on the birth of photography and the question of reproducibility. As soon as the production of the image is delegated to the machine in an arrangement of mathematical graphic calculations, the question of creativity quickly arose. To give a framework to what we will consider to be part of human creativity here, we can refer on the one hand to Maurice Stein's so-called standard definition. Generally speaking, creativity occurs when a person produces something new and original, having some effectiveness, if not some value or utility. On the other hand, we can take into account Melvin Rhodes' terminology. After numerous interviews and consultations in various fields, ranging from art to engineering, he defines the princess of creativity around four items: the person, the product, the process, and the place. Based on this framework, Jonas Oppenlaender conducted experiments on Midjourney, highlighting certain observations. The selection of an image at a certain stage of its generation is eminently a matter of human judgment. In addition, the sharing of prompts and their results between users gives a proven collaborative and community aspect. However, regarding the prompt design, he points out that a minimalist input works, for example, a simple smiley, as does a copy of any textual data, music lyrics in his case. The part of ideation is thus called into question as an element of creativity involved in Midjourney, at least in terms of its systematism. I will use here the term ideation to refer to the production of ideas, imagination, mental images, as well as the invention of the text in prompt itself. In another approach, Irene Russo proposed a study to show a lack of benchmark on perceived creativity in text-to-image system, while questioning the possibility of obtaining more creative images if we offer a more creative prompt. In my opinion, the question of creativity arose mainly on the question of the result, the product. As far as the process is concerned, a Walterian critic sees in synthography a loss of gesture damaging to art. The creativity of the coder, like that of the mathematician, is generally set aside, which is considered to be known. Finally, the artist prompter. For the artist prompter, the question of originality arises in a context where the content of AI training database is still a lively controversy in terms of copyright upstream and the durability of the image generated downstream. My proposal puts the artist prompter back at the center of the generative process in an involving practice that highlights both a form of serendipity and idiosyncrasy. By considering the input text not only for its semantic value, but also as translating a choice of formatting and resulting from a situated ephemeral experience. I give any prompt an augmented dimension that I inscribe in the images generated by AI. Here, I define a human-typed text as the center of a triptych composed by its sense, its form, and its experience of typing. I call them the plurimodalities of the text. Thus, the projector is placed towards the user so as to characterize more particularly his experience in a physiological, sensitive, and situated experience going beyond the results alone. Typically, by modeling the life cycle of a text in phases of ideation, preparation, composition, and exploitation, I can situate the relative approaches of text-to and typing-to systems. Typing-to, which is my proposition. Thus, the purpose of the typing-to model is to go back before the prompt validation, where the text-to generative engine begins to work on the prompt validation. Typically, the workflow you get is as follows. During input, the experimental information is captured via the computer's webcam and via a heart rate device, cardiometry belt, or a smartwatch. When the prompt is image or text-to-scene generation engine, while a second module analyzes the form of the text. Here, it is simply the OpenAI API for 2D images and Meshy.ai for 3D mesh generation. The image obtained is then altered post-generation by algorithms of my design, which are based on experimental or shaped data. The visual rendering is then altered by several typing-to algorithms of my own. Let's give some details about this triptych. Here, meaning can be simply thought as the classical use and processing of language in the context of an LLM. I consider the form of the text from three perspectives: the aesthetic form of the text, the statistical study of the text, and the text as a code in a steganographic approach, concealment of information hidden inside the text. As an example of researches using text formatting, here is a short video. There will be a prompt that gives us rise and reference image by default. The authors illustrated that by changing the color of the word's long hair, the pattern of the image corresponding effectively takes the added color. A second example shows the effect of a change in font. The visual style of the image changes accordingly. The footnotes are also within the scope of the specifications for the generative engine as a locally active sub-prompt. The same goes for hyperlinks that allows an image to be provided as a multimodal reference. And last example, the font size, which provides information on the multiplicity and dispersion of the target term. The experience of typing corresponds to an ephemeral context that can condition the way of writing. I propose different elements to characterize it: temporally data, date, time, and duration of the composition, breaks, etc. Contextual data, rituals, constraints, methodology. Sensitive and emotional author-related data. Physiological data, states of health, trend states, and type-based data, in one word, the keyboard activity, fluidity, key pressing, corrections, etc. The input experience also distinguishes between two content inputs that are close or even similar. The displayed sentences are not only distinguished by their formatting, capital letters, but also by their duration of typing, the correction made, and the ease of writing. Based on these considerations, I developed some algorithms for image alteration in post-production. Here are a few examples. The fuzzy spaces algorithm is based on the shape of the text by counting the extra spacing left in the text. The spaces, which in a way look like air bubbles left in the text, will produce blurred spots in the image at a random position. In terms of statistical analysis example of the text, the character frequency algorithm establishes the frequency of appearance of the characters in the text on the one hand, and the list of pixels in the image by color on the other hand. By comparing the frequencies of appearance of the characters with the histogram of the same language, we determine the indices of the letters that do not match, so that the pixel colors are reversed to the same indices. This usually results in a kind of scattering of certain colors in the image, resembling slight visual artifacts. As for experiential data, the date, time, and duration of input are encoded in a watermark embedded stamp in a corner of the image. This color matrix then gives the impression of a mark, like a QR code, as a time signature of the design of the work. In a 3D scene, for example, this pixel matrix alternately brightens and darkens at a rate proportional to the author's average heart rate captured during prompt input. The cardiometry device, belt or smartwatch, thus captures the pulse as a pulsation of life, which is inscribed in the work through the timestamp, which marks a moment of life during which the author has written. During the prompt, the webcam films the author, and an algorithm determines facial emotions as the prompt is captured. The most frequently detected emotion applies a filter to the image by lightening, darkening, accentuating a color, etc. In terms of keyboard event detection, the character's revenge algorithm codes the character deleted or rectified during the prompt writing. Each deleted character will result in the deletion of a small square of pixel in the image, which will be as if off. I kill the character, I kill a pixel. Here is a small video demonstration of a web application that I created around this model, the typing to image. Has it begun? Not yet. When the application is launched, a Windows opens linked to the webcam that films the artist author, and which begins to determine his facial emotions. From then on, during the writing of the prompt, the author will be able to reflect, go back and forth in his text, express his reflection and his elaboration process facially. And we can already notice that with a few words, we already have corrections, deletions, back and forth in the writing of the prompt. As facial emotions are captured over time, it is the average emotion that will give rise to the alteration raised out to the capture in post-production. As soon as we move to a second sentence, we notice the line break, which is the beginning of the formatting of the text. The two sentences could have been aligned, so it is a deliberate choice of the author. We will also notice more subtly spaces left in excess in the text, a mark that seems innocuous but nevertheless present. Once the generation is complete, the images are produced using the various alteration, as well as music that is produced by the type pattern web application from all the characters in the text. At the bottom left, we can clearly see the pulsations of the color matrix. Here are some images generated as part of self-experimentation. The first experiment, Courage, Braving Fear, uses a short, simple prompt where form comes into play little with abstract terms. The result is a fantastic image with slight alterations and whose generational defects are visible here and there, such as the shield without a handle or the right foot of the knight melted. 3D generation gives a completely different interpretation, showing the large difference in the result depending on the nature and extent of the 2D and 3D training data. The second experiment, Drops of Water on the Green Leaf, is quite close but short with more precise indications. On this experiment, typos have been corrected, which can be seen by the erased pixels. For the third experiment, Red Kitten Sleeping in the Sun, a shaping begins to be introduced by line breaking and spacing. The 2D image shows some alterations in the light reflection and in the warm tones. Experiment number 4 was most phantasmagorical in the tangle of geometry shapes, with longer text and a more frightened facial expression when typing. We can note that the mention of Salvador Dali, on the other hand, was not retained in terms of meaning. It remains usable for other algorithms of form and experience. Experiment number 5, Missed Appointment, gives another tone. The formatting is more elaborated, close to a calligram, and puts into action several algorithms of each sense form experience modalities. Finally, for Experimentation 6, I choose a poem by Rimbaud, poetry for its distinctive structure, and Rimbaud for its linguistic richness and poetic abstraction. The result will, unsurprisingly, be more interesting in its aesthetic than for its alignment between text and image. This perspective leads us to consider out students' learning both in its productive and exploratory dimension. From then on, it is no longer just a question of controlling, test, examination. It is a question of translating the experience of skill development in the image of a soft skill of learning, resilience, introspection, reflection as a process. By the way, the current LLM tools can still be used for classic learning and teaching work. We can generate summaries of courses, of texts, and of books. We can generate mind maps, revision sheets, flashcards, quizzes. We can make translations, adapt explanations, exam subject, creating role plays to rehearse, anticipating questions, subjective avenues for further study, etc. Hence, the fact that I do not focus my topic today in this direction. Questioning the student about his experience and his choices for shaping his productions, on the other hand, reflects a personality, as when we are writing a text. His training, his refinement. In a world where technical skills may still be challenged by technological advances, their soft skills are in line with personal added value as a human, which can go as far as math skills. This is how we can move away from reproducibility, as evoked by Benjamin Walter, or even from standardization, by the primary consideration of the authenticity of experience, what it brings as a vision, what it allows us to understand and deduce the path specific to a journey and the confrontation with hazards. Based on these principles, I imagine an application still in development where the writing of a text could color it according to the typing experience and its context. The idea is therefore to obtain a formatting of the text, color and font, according to the feeling experienced and the difficulties encountered during the writing, which passages were the more pleasant, the easiest to write, which ones have been proofread and corrected the most, which ones posed more conceptual difficulties. In this way, we would keep track of these elements, for example, a coloring toward green for passages written simply or pleasantly, a coloring towards warm colors for passages that were difficult to write, etc. From then on, the question of the teacher's reading arises. What is his reaction to having this sensitive trace in the watermark of the text? Can we consider both natural evaluation at first, and then a look at this sensitive feedback? Here we have an opportunity to take into account both the pragmatic result of learning and an individual subjective part of its process. In a non-academic setting, the practice of art therapy and applied psychology has frequently led me to question learners, adults, about the feelings during their learning. This Rogerian humanist perspective is central to these emotional therapy frameworks. Art contributes to introspective exploration and free expression as an active or subconscious practice. The polarization is less advanced on the result, which can be the case in psychoanalysis elsewhere, than on the internal-external processes. To talk about the future, where some people emphasize the empathetic shaping of the discourse of current LLM systems, ChatGPT, etc., the consideration of its physio-sensitive parameters in its own interactions suggests a future imbued with digital empathy. Where some research teams are making progress on neuro-connected or brain-connected systems, it is possible to envisage that these future systems will not only reflect the mental image or the intention to express words, but probably also one day they will be tinged with a physiological and emotional context, like what is commonly perceived in the voice of a person you are talking to. I mentioned this as an idea, but gladly dismissed any ethical and moral polemics on the subject, at least for the time being, as it would be an important statement and on which I would probably like relevance today. We could then one day envisage an extension of typing 2 towards a dreaming 2 system, going back to the ideation or the mental image itself. By the way, already in 2013, the neuroscientist Yakiyasu Kamitani made human participants take hundreds of short naps in an MRI machine, waking them up so they could tell their dreams. Professor Kamitani had already isolated the patterns of brain activity related to certain objects that he had shown to the awake subjects. Their brains were scanned to spot these patterns during nap time, and the computer program automatically transformed the content of these dreams into short videos. The study found 70% agreement with what the sleepers remembered dreaming. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you have been interested in my topic and maybe even inspired. For me, this is an eminently exciting and humanistic perspective. I hope in the future to be able to devote time to further develop its system, to experiment with them, and to share feedback. Thank you, Gaëtan, for the invitation and for organizing this symposium. Thank you, Yvette, and thanks again to everyone.